Just let me know that the Finin logo is looking well, so I
Yeah.
can find.
Okay. So welcome everyone to the ninth episode of Expert Speak, brought to you by Creators of Product. If you haven't joined the Slack community yet, please do so. Today we have with us CEO and founder of Finin, a neobank in making, which we are eagerly waiting to launch. Suman has been an entrepreneur, an executor, and a VC. Before Finin, he was helping startups get going at Neco Capital in Barcelona, Spain. Previously, he also founded Let Me Call You and Vozio in the telecom and VoIP sector. Today, Suman will be talking about what neobanks are, why they are relevant, about neobanks in India, and the problems they solve. And there are a variety of questions that have been asked during registration. Those also Suman will answer today. So without wasting much of the time, I would hand it over to Suman. Thank you so much, Suman, for making time for this, and looking forward to this.
Thank you, guys. Divakar, thanks a lot for hosting me. And I'm a bit nervous because this is hosted by creator of product, right? So you guys are always working in the product, and I don't. I hope you guys don't scrutinize and my product especially. Okay, we are talking more about neobanks. And especially on multiple Slack groups of product Slack groups or multiple Slack groups and Twitter, I see that there is a lot of backlash on neobanks, and there is kind of something going against like neobanks in sector in India. And I totally understand. Because if you see in the last 10 to 15 years, everybody is like, we are another copycat from the Europe, or I will say Europe, because America is nowhere as good as banking when coming to India, right? So India is much more advanced when coming to banking and telecom, better than Europe, I will say, right? So when people in India or entrepreneurs in India are looking when building a neo bank in India, when there are multiple products, whether it can be wallets or whether it can be UPI based payment systems, whether it can be very advanced mobile apps for banking, I would say, because I saw many mobile banks, because I don't know, to give you a quick summary to our viewers here. For the last 16 years, I've been living and working in Europe. I did my master's in Copenhagen, worked in Switzerland for a few years. So when I was working in Switzerland, I had my first two-factor authentication device with me. That was my first time. I think it was in 2005. I had my first two-factor authentication. So all these myths and stories around nameless accounts or only number accounts in Switzerland. So I had that account. So it's quite common. It's kind of Hollywood movies doing that stuff. So, but when I got that account, having a Swiss account is kind of thing. So I had my Swiss account, and they gave me this small device of two-factor authentication. So whenever I do a transaction, automatically two-factor authentication is you have to generate the two-factor authentication with that device, which is encrypted, and then you have to enter the two-factor authentication on the Swiss banking. So other than that and everything, India is much more advanced with UPI and payment systems and everything. So when we talk about people launching neobanks in India, everybody is curious what exactly these people are going to solve, what exactly neobanks are going to solve. Are they going to solve a problem, or are they going to be an add-on, or is just like all the hype and hola, like everything which something is working in Europe, entrepreneurs in India wants to build in India. So with my experience in Europe, I saw as a VC, I was handling multiple fintech products. And when I see the startups in Europe, when I see startups in India, there's a lot of difference in fintech, right? Fintech in Europe is more about the B2B, right? What they can solve as a B2B product, right? B2C, it's not much as something, because if you see the wallets or if you see the mobile payments, they are not much of a success in Europe, because most of the people are used to spending with cards, right? Every card is an NFC. Every post terminal is an NFC. Okay, and so people are not really apt opting into mobile payments because it's kind of a mess of taking your mobile and scanning a QR. Because I was also the head of a company tech called Zapper. Zapper is a fintech company which is similar to Paytm in Europe and South Africa. So when they want to launch in Spain, I was heading their tech. So we launched it's similar, right? You paste a QR on the merchant, and then people come, they take the mobile out, they scan the QR, and they pay. It's similar to Paytm, but they were focusing more on Europe, UK, and in South Africa. So when we started doing it, there was not much of attraction. So I was like, dude, why there's not much of attraction? Because every card is an NFC card, and every POS is an NFC device, right? So changing that habit is really hard, especially changing people's habits for any kind of payment system or any kind of habit is really hard. So when we were looking into it, so when coming to India, you see, right, the Paytm or mobile penetration or internet penetration or mobile payment penetration is huge because we are not trying to change the habit. We are trying to give them a new option to pay or to use or to browse. For example, as you know that I'm a telecom engineer, I'm a voice over IP engineer. I saw the whole transition of telecom. I saw from SS7 signaling, analog telecom to voice over IP to WebRTC, right? So, in India, everybody have a mobile right now. So, and 90% of these people who are having a mobile in their hands, they never had a call on landline, right? So we skipped from one technology and jumping directly into one technology. The same happened with mobile wallets, right? So we never had 90% of the Indian population who are using mobile wallets or Paytm or whatever it is. They never had a credit card or a debit card. So they're skipping one technology and directly getting to other technology. So the traction is so huge in Asia for mobile payments and mobile wallets when comparing to Europe, where they saw the whole the cards, the bank, the NFC, and everything. So the habit formation was not happen with the cards in India. So the mobile penetration, the mobile wallet penetration is very huge. So and the same way when UPI launched, UPI is kind of an innovation, which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Right, I know when I was looking into Stripe as a portfolio company, or when I was looking into another portfolio companies, when I see UPI, there is nothing kind of UPI in, anywhere in the world. So it's kind of a revolution. It's kind of a innovation what happened in India, right? So when we see the whole wallet, when we see the whole UPI, and right now with neobank, right? Everybody is saying like, we are building a neobank. So what exactly is a neobank? That's what I want to tell here. What exactly is a neobank and what exactly they can do, and why people are so laughing at neobanks and when somebody talk about neobanks is I totally understand because we are kind of I know something is working in Europe, so let's launch in India. But that kind of mentality of launching neobank in India will never work. Because if you see in Europe, they focus more on features. Okay, instant notification is such a big feature in Europe, right? But if you see instant notification in India, I get 1,000 SMS every day. So instant notification will never be a feature, right? So we cannot build a feature-focused neobank. Okay, we have to build a value-focused neobank. Right, and the problem with the neobanks in India is everybody is a neobank in India. Like everybody wants to be a startup. Every startup wants to be a fintech. Sorry, every startup wants to be a fintech, and every fintech wants to be a neobank. Right. So you are issuing a credit card to someone, it's a neobank. You are issuing a debit card to someone, it's a neobank. But I think that neobank is a word which is really which is overhyped and used in India because everybody wants to ride on the hype what's going on. But if you really see, I kind of whatever building they are trying to solve a problem, whether it can be issuing a credit card for a corporate, whether issuing a debit card for teenagers or credit card for teenagers, everybody is trying to solve a problem where there is a need, there is a necessity, right? And as you see that neobank will help people to put the right things on the deck and everything. So it's kind of okay to use. That's what the thing, right? But what I think is that neobank is not just about building a product. It's about changing the way people bank, right? Changing the way how people bank, changing the providing a feature or providing a value to the user what the existing fintech or existing bank doesn't give, right? If you see in the last 5 to 7 years, there is a huge, a tremendous opportunities. There were tremendous opportunities in fintech, and everybody really, the way fintech evolved in India, it was like really tremendous, right? But what happened within the last multiple years is like there are only two things happened in fintech in India: either they are lending or either they are payment. First came the wave of wallets, Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytm, and there are like thousands of wallets. What they did is that they push the customer into spending. I will give you 2,000 of voucher. So why don't you spend 5,000? If you spend 5,000, I give you 2,000 of voucher. So and it's so easy to spend with scanning a QR, right? Scanning a QR and pay. So all this startups, they really push the consumers into spending. The consumerism, that's what I will call it. They push the consumers into spending, and then there came the wave of other kind of fintechs, which are like lending, right? Take money. Ola is giving, dude. I came to India and I installed Ola, and I have like 5,000 of Ola credit without KYC. I haven't had any Aadhaar back then. I just had my phone number, right? Which the phone number I took it on someone else's name. Okay, I don't know if I can say that that's illegal, right? But I opened a Ola account. I had 5,000 of Ola credit. I didn't even ask for it, right? The same way, everybody is lending money left and right. Even you don't even have to do your KYC. And I have 5,000 or 7,000 rupees of credit. So what happened with in the fintech is that all the fintech companies, they're pushing the consumers into spending or lending, right? Borrowing or spending. So in this way, they are really bombarding the user to get to bury himself into a credit crunch, right? Take a loan. You want to buy a mobile, take a loan. You want to go on a holiday, take a loan, and just spend, right? So none of these fintechs are really, or banks, even the banks. So what the banks really did is that they gave the user an option to deposit their money and give them a way to transfer money or manage their money. I will not even call managing money. So the banks did really help people to in any way being financially independent or economically stable. So most of the banks, they say that they have a savings account, and I will say there is nothing about savings in a savings account in any bank, right? So even if you see the banks, they divide the customers into two brackets: age bracket and income bracket. So let's take an example. Two people, they're working in the same company, same role, same salary. One person is married with a kid, and other person is single, right? But the bank doesn't care if he's married or single with a kid. They don't care anything. What they do is that they put these two users into age bracket and income bracket, and they mass produce the product and push down the throats of the user, right? So it's not then. But if you see a person with a kid and a single person, they have differential financial needs. Their financial journey and financial life is totally different when comparing to each other. So none of the fintechs or none of the banks are really pushing anything to make the user to be financially independent, economically stable. So that's where we, neobanks, or we, Finin, we come into the scenario. What we are doing is that we are building a hyper-personalized banking solution where we can help our users to manage, save, and invest their money in a proper way, right? What a neobank can do is that they can understand the user patterns, right? They understand the user behavior. They can see how financial stable a user is, how financial disciplined a user is, right? And what is his risk appetite? If he is a long-term risk appetite or short-term risk appetite, or he can take risk, right? So based on that, a bank or a neobank can provide hyper-personalized banking, where it can be managing their money, where it can be saving their money, or it can be investing their money, right? So many people will ask, okay, every bank is, or every bank or every fintech, they are helping people to manage money. And I kind of agree with it, right? But I will say that, I will take the liberty and I stand corrected here. Like 90% of the Indians, or I will say 95% of Indians or 95% of the world is financially illiterate. We are good at many things. We are good at product. We are good at marketing. We are engineers and doctors. But when coming to managing money, saving money is a big chore, and we are not really good. And it's not because we are not capable, right? We are not capable. It's more because of lack of time, lack of financial education, lack of lack of multiple things. That is the reason I say that we are financially literate. So most of the existing fintech or banks, what they're doing is that they tell you how much you spent last week, how much you spent last month, and how much you spent on food, how much you spent on travel, how much you spent on entertainment, right? By giving this information, a person who don't know what to do with this information, it doesn't make any sense, right? As I saw one of your tweet, Diwakar, I saw one of your tweet or one of your survey that how many people are using or any tools to manage their money, right? And you know the results. I can share it here. I kept a copy of that, and only 5% of your survey said they use a tool or they manage their money, and the rest of the 95% they don't know, right? So if you're telling some person how much you spent on food or travel or entertainment last week, where he cannot take action, right? Because if I'm telling you you did something, then you cannot take an action. But if I'm going to tell you that you're going to happen something, you can take an option, right? You can take an action to solve it. So what we can do as a neobank is that instead of telling you how much you spent on something, what we can do is that we can tell you how much you can spend, right? By understanding your behavior, financial behavior, spending patterns, we can tell you how much you can spend this day, how much you can spend this week, how much you can spend this month. And when you're reaching the threshold, we can notify you that you're reaching your threshold of spending limit. Why don't you manage your finances properly, right? And why can't you save properly? Because most of the people, when we look into saving, right? One of the main, the typical thing, what most of the people do when coming to saving is that they have two accounts, right? They have a savings account, main account, where the salary and all the money comes in, and then they move money to another account to save, or they invest money. So investment is kind of saving, right? But what I think and what neobanks should think, that investments are not savings, right? Because savings is something where you have liquidity when you need it, right? And like I said, right, other day I saw tweets by you and many other people how much they were saving during this COVID, because they were not spending. Like most of the people, they're not saving anything because they're keeping in the same account, and I will never call that as a saving. And if you see at the present situation of Corona and COVID, once the COVID or situation or the lockdown lifts, the uncertainty of jobs is really high, right? And if you see how many people can really survive, for example, 2 or 3 months without having a job, very few, because none of these people have an emergency fund. Because in India, there is no concept of having an emergency fund to survive. For example, in Europe, if I lose my job or if my company fires me, the government pays me around 85 to 95% of my salary every month for 1 year. There is not same scenario here in India. And most of we do not have an emergency fund. So we can survive for 2 or 3 months, where we can survive and find a job when we lose a job, right? It's not because they don't want to, because it's just because of lack of process, lack of education on this, lack of knowledge, right? So a neobank can help people to save well, to save for an emergency fund without they putting much an effort, right? Same way in mutual funds, there are very interesting startups in India in the last few years when coming to investments, whether it can be Zerodha, whether it can be other companies, right? I don't want to take the names for you guys. No, they really help people to open a mutual fund online, right? To open a mutual fund online, to open a liquid fund online, they did multiple ways so people can invest, right? Better than banks. But what happens is only 1% of the whole population of India, they go to these websites like mutual funds and everything. Because rest of the people, they don't know what a mutual fund is. They don't know how to open a mutual fund because lack of financial education, like I said, right? So that's what we do. We understand, like a neobank can understand the user behavior, user patterns, their need of money, their necessity of money, and based on that, we can push we can push the right mutual funds or investment options for the user without they putting much effort, without they being learning the nuclear science. So in this way, a neobank can solve multiple problems based on the user behavior, user patterns, everything, where the existing fintech or existing fintechs or existing banks are failing. So, and with this Corona and the COVID situation, I think everybody is thinking about digitalization, right? So, and that's where I see that neobanks are going to play a huge role down the lane when coming to the digital banking, right? And I will stand corrected, and I will say most of the banks they say that they are digital banks, but I don't see them digital, right? Most of the banks are digitalized, but they are not digital. So the difference between digitalization and digital is like, before you used to check the statement on the paper, now you're checking on the app, or now you're checking on the web. So before you used to transfer money, if you have to deposit money somewhere, you have to go to the branch. Now you're doing it online. So that's what the banks did. They put the bank statement into app. They put the depositing the money into transfer. That is digitalization. But what I see is that digital is missing in the banks right now, where they can use data, where they can use the AI, where they can use the ML, where they can understand the user, what is his needs, what are his necessities, what is his spending habits, and provide hyper-personalized banking. And that's where neobanks can come into the scenario, where they can push the right features, right products based on the user instead of just. I'll give you one example before going to the questions or something. Let's say, there are a lot of there are a lot of banks. They have this joint account, right? And if you see the nuclear families in India right now, especially in the urban families, both the husband and wife, they both are working, right? So both the husband and wife are working. What they do is that they open a joint account, and they calculate the expenses in an Excel and everything, and they put the money. That's what I think it works here, right? But why can't if a bank can really put a proper joint account where a husband and wife can manage it properly, understanding what the needs of the family is, understanding what are the future plans of the family is, understanding what they have to do when they have a kid, and then start saving for the new one in the family. Why can't a bank really pushing a joint account for a working family, right? A family where both of the people are working. So where a neobank here can solve those problems. There are some multiple things where a neobank can solve, where the existing banks and fintechs are failing, right? And if you see, so I think there are multiple questions here regarding payments banks, where Paytm have a bank, whether other people are launching mutual funds, etc. But there is a lot of difference between what other companies are doing, other startups are doing, what a neobank can do, and especially what Finin as a neobank in India what we can do, and what we are working on, and what is the change, or what is the value we bring to the users who join Finin or who can have it neobank. So any questions or anything, I'll be more than happy. I think there are other day, Divakar, you shared multiple questions from the users. I will get to that later. So if somebody have any questions, I'll be more than happy.
In the chat section, we already have a few questions, so we can start with that. Narayan Rao, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Divakar. So I was asking, I mean, what the main differentiating factor for neobank seems to be the level of personalization. So how do these neobanks actually realize that personalization? What kind of data these companies have to collect to ensure that kind of personalization?
So I think it's Narayan. Thanks for the question. And I think you're more focusing on the security and privacy. So I will mention this more on the Finin point of view than the neobank point of view, because I cannot comment for other neobanks here. So what we are doing for personalization is right. So I'm totally against scanning your SMS or stuff. So what we do is that we do multiple data points. One of our future in our bank is that you can aggregate all your existing accounts into our neobank. So if you have an existing ICICI bank or existing HDFC bank, you can connect that existing bank into our app. So we can pull the data, and we can analyze the data, and we give you the personalization based on that data. And also, as we are giving you a savings account, and as we are giving you a debit card, what we do is that all the transactions what you originate from using our account, we understand your behavior from that data and the account aggregation what you're doing, and based on that we personalization, right? For example, I will tell you, one of our features is liquid funds, right? Most of the people, they have their salaries on first of the month. They receive their salaries on first of the month, and most of the people, they have their bank loans or EMIs or bike loans or car loans or 9th or 10th of the month. So these 10 days, the money is doing nothing for the user, sitting in the main account. So what we do is that we understand what are your bills, what are your EMIs, and with your permission, we move all the amount which you pay for your bills into a liquid fund for the 10 days, and the day before we push it back where you can pay all your bills. So the 10 days, the money is doing something for you. So in that way, what we do is that with the account aggregation, with the way you pay your bills, with the way you use your debit card, we understand your behavior, and we personalize the banking for you, right? So that's how these are the data points what we collect. Your debit card transactions, your savings account transactions. If you add your account aggregation, these are the three. And along down the line, we are looking into more four. But we don't scan your SMS, we don't scan your email for now. I mean, when I say for now, it's based on the user acceptance of the product, and we will look into it down the line. But right now, we are going to check your debit card, savings account, and the account aggregation, and based on that, we personalize the products and features for you.
Thanks, Suman. That's really interesting.
Amrit?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Suman, so my question is like, what is stopping traditional banks, or what we say maybe new age banks, the private banks? They already have the customer data. They might not need permissions as well from users to analyze their data. What is stopping them to offer this personalized services, or why can't they be termed as neobanks?
I think you have touched
And
a
another
very
question was around.
topic for Suman. I think he'll go on for half an hour answering this question. So Suman, don't go on for half an hour answering this.
No, I will not. So, Amrit, I got your first question, and I also have your second question. And both of these questions are very near and dear for me. And like Divaka said, I can go on. But I'll tell you one thing, one very example. If banks are so capable of doing something like a neobank, there will be no Paytm or PhonePe or Google Pay where they issue a UPI handle for the fintech company, because a UPI handle comes from the bank to the fintech, and they failed on doing that. Okay, even if you say maybe the banks can learn from their failures, they cannot really build a neobank, because neobanks are we kind of I will talk about Finin, right? So we focus on very niche segments, right? We focus on niche segments, and we provide hyper personalized features for those niche segments. So, but when coming to the banks, they have such a huge burden on them, whether it can be branches, whether it can be the tech, whether it can be the people, whether it can be NPS, which is going on and on nowadays. So the banks have a lot of burden on them to focus on niche segments. So they want to focus on products which they can build for the whole India or whole Bharat and push it down the throats. So focusing on a niche segment will never work out for banks, even if you look at that. And especially if then people can argue with me like how banks like Bandhan Bank, who focused on rural population, how some other banks did it. But focusing on niche segment is a very haphazard for banks with the existing white elephants they are. So I think that is one of the reasons they are looking to partner with neobanks than building a neobank for themselves. So SBI Yono, I will say a neobank, and Kotak No, I don't call them a neobank because they're challenger banks. So most of the people, they confuse challenger banks with neobanks. So neobanks are something where you do not have a license, where you piggyback on license of an existing bank is what a neobank is. A challenger bank is where they have a license and where they can provide, where they build only digital banking, like DBS, like what they did with DBS, right? And SBI and Kotak 811, they are challenger banks. But as we focus on very niche segments, I don't think the banks will be able to focus on the niche segment and build pivot, right? Ask any banker, they will not even know what the word pivot is. When we, as the creator of products in here, we know what pivot is and what we can build when something doesn't work and what we can build based on the user. So I think I got your answer here. And coming to your next question, women and men started working and they're earning equally. Yes, that's what I totally want to build, right? A savings account where a husband and wife can have and understand on all their spending, savings, and everything, and build a better family and be financially and independent. And we are totally working on it. And this is in our second roadmap, and we will prove something that we are doing something better when coming to handling the finances of a family where both the members are working. So I hope this I answered your question, Samir.
Yeah, Suman, I really liked your answer.
Okay. So coming to Gaurav, how are the neobanks and API banking related? Gaurav, neobanks are built on the APIs of existing banks, and I will say none of the banks have proper APIs. And I know the pain what we went through on building a API banks based on the banking APIs. So we build on the existing API banking, then we call ourselves API bank. So that is the answer to this.
Okay. Actually, I had one more question. The thing that you said about aggregation of data. So would you be licensed as an account aggregator, or would you be just piggybacking on the bank?
No, we are not. We cannot piggyback on the bank because banks are not a part of the account aggregation, right? Even with the account aggregation, I think it will take 1.5 years in India for the account aggregations to be a reality, right? So we are using a third-party solutions, and we are doing the account aggregation, then waiting for the account aggregation. But we have our plans to apply for the account aggregation license and see where we can do it. But yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Suman.
Yeah, thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. So, and I think it's, yeah.
Venkatesh, you want to ask your question?
Hi, I'm Kiran. Can I ask a few questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so this particular talk of account aggregation. So in Europe, there is already this PSD2. And what I understand, it is not yet taken off because there are no specifications by the regulator, unlike the UPI. UPI is taken off because of the specifications published and a strong regulatory support. Do you think NPCI or RBI should step in and do some kind of a PSD2 equivalent, publish the specifications so that it takes off much faster? And my other question is, are there any regulations at this time for neobanks?
Okay, Kiran, to give you a quick background, I'm one of the members of the PSD2, consortium on the European Union. So I was on the panel of on the PSD2. So I have a clear idea on how PSD2 was developed in Europe and how things are in India, right? So the PSD2 in Europe and open banking in UK, right? They are really clear on the regulations and everything, and the banks were very open to be part of this thing. Even if the banks were not really open, the European Union and the UK Financial Authority, they really did their work to bring the banks on board. But the problem in India, it's not about the regulation, it's not about NPCI or RBI. They're really doing a great work of putting the account aggregation and stuff. The problem here is with the banks, right? So banks, if you see the data which the banks have, doesn't belong to the bank. It belongs to the user. If I am using my debit card and if I'm spending somewhere, for example, if I'm spending on Swiggy, the data belongs to me, not to the bank. But the banks in India, what I see, okay, I stand corrected, and maybe none of the banks wants to work with me tomorrow, but I will tell you that most of the banks in India, what they are doing is that what is it in for me? What I will get if I give the data to everyone, right? They don't want to give the data to the user's hands. Right, that is the reason where the account aggregation is taking so much time. For example, one bank don't want to be part of account aggregation because if they give the data, what is the use for them? So they are expecting monetary benefits. They are expecting any other benefits for the bank, right? So that is one of the reasons the account aggregation is taking so long, because the banks are white elephants. They don't want to see the data good for the user. They don't want to build something what is good for the user. And maybe I'm talking, I'm saying these things on my perspective, but I see how people were really, how the banks would really not want to be part of account aggregation. So I think it's not the RBI or NPCI; it's more the banks. They should take they step forward and get things this done and be part of account aggregation and make sure that the data is data belongs to the user, not to any banks, not to any fintech, or not to any neobank. And coming to the regulations, yeah, as a neobank for right now, we are piggybacking on the license of existing banks. So we do not need any regulations right now. But if RBI comes up with anything, we are ready to see what we can do with it. But right now, we do not need any regulation like NBFC, or we do not need any regulations. We piggyback on existing banking licenses.
Yeah, thank you. Just one more extending that. Suppose the banks agree to do the account aggregation. They look at some benefit for themselves. Doesn't it make a better sense to have one set of specifications for all the banks, for all the neobanks, so that it takes off much faster?
Yes. Account aggregation, they have their own set of their own set of things, and it will be standard. It will be standard. There will not be something different for each bank. So account aggregation will be standard, and interconnecting with the bank will be standard too. That's what I came to know while talking to people. I'm not much involved in the account aggregation because, like I said, right, I'm a bit away from the Indian regulatory system. But what I came to know, what I read, and what I've been talking to people, it's going to be a standardization. There is a standard model for the account aggregation.
Yeah. While talking, I vaguely remember RBI had released some discussion paper for account aggregation.
Yes.
I'll have to go back and check about that. Thanks.
Okay, so let's take the questions in the order, and I request people to stick to one question because there's a long list. So next, Amit Gupta, do you want to ask a question?
Sure. Hey, good evening, Suman. Suman, I mean, whatever you are saying, I mean, a lot of it makes sense, and I have already experienced both sides of the board. So I was founding CTO of a payments company or remittance company to start with, right? Called InstaRem.
Oh.
So I was there about 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you're saying, right? And second, currently I work as a CTO of a company last 3 years, which works in private wealth data aggregation and analytics. So I know both sides what you're saying, right? But at the same time, I mean, from my own experience, right, when we were doing InstaRem, and I mean, InstaRem is still a good company, right? But when we were doing, so we were working with a traditional bank somewhere, not in India, in the other market. And I mean, although banks are lazy, that's why neobank was, there was a need for neobank, right? But at the same time, what do you think? I mean, in my sense, I know data engineering plays a big role, but what do you think? Despite banking on traditional banks license, do you think just the IP is enough for it to become self-sustainable?
No.
Like I mean, N26 has different type of model, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how would you differentiate? I mean, what's your vision about Finin? What do you think about industry? Right. I think that'll.
Totally. And Amit, I will never say that if you, I will say that you guys are one of the people who were really affected by regulations, whether it can be inward regulations, whether it be outward remittance regulations. So I think you know the pain, and you know how bad the banks have been coming to the APIs and everything, right? And coming to, I totally know it, and I think I'll connect with you offline. I have a few questions for you, other than me.
No, sure.
So I totally agree with you. We are running on a double we are running on something which, how I can put it, yeah, we are riding on a tiger. We can't get off, we can't sit on, right? So we have to depend on the bank, and we have to depend on their licenses. We have to depend on the bank, and we have to build the banking on top of them, right? But as you see, right, it's banking. The reason why we do the banking is because the transaction originates and terminates on the bank. Even if you see at the wallet or UPI, you need a bank account or you need a debit card. And that is one of the reasons why we are building a neobank, because the transaction originates and terminates on the banking platform. So other than that, banking, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to build products or features where we don't have to depend on the bank. So that is one of the reasons whenever we partner with a bank, what we do is that the customer doesn't belong to you. The customer belongs to me. The customer belongs to himself. The data, the text, the data and everything is him, right? So what we do is, instead of we are just depending on the bank for certain features, certain banking solutions, and rest of the mutual funds, or rest of the savings, or rest of everything, what we're doing is that we are partnering with third party, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So based on that, so if something happens with one of the banks or every other bank, we are ready to see, we are ready to survive even without depending on the bank. So it's not just about it's not just about we sustaining on our IP. So we have to make sure that we are not running, or we are not riding on one bank or one regulatory license holder. So all our other things will fail. So I don't know if I answer your question right. So
sure, I hear you. I mean,
so for example, we one of our feature, guys, I will say something here. One of our main feature is focusing on freelancers, right? Amit, you will be more you know this more, because one of the biggest pain points for any freelancer in India is to receive inward remittance, right? So most of the people are either using PayPal or TransferWise or banks, which have or Instagram, I would say, they have their own set of issues. So what we are doing is that we are working on a payment method where a freelancer can receive money instantly from their foreign clients into his Finin account. So with mid-market exchange rate and with the cheapest commission, right? So based on that, where in this way we partner with the third-party solutions where we don't have to depend on the bank for their SWIFT MT103, or we don't have to depend on the bank for their clearance bank in other countries. So we are working on partnering with multiple products, multiple companies, where we can survive even something happens because of the bank.
I hear you. Thanks, Suman. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Amit.
Harsh?
Hi, Suman. Really interesting session.
Hey.
Thank you for taking it. So my question is, with a lot of these new neobanks coming up, who do you see as your competitor? Neobanks targeting the same niche segment as you are, or something else based on the new tech coming up in the next few years?
First of all, let me put this: neobank is not a sector where winner takes everything, right? There is a huge market. There are multiple sectors. There is multiple sectors and segments where we can focus. So who do you see as a competitor? I cannot see anyone as a competitor of mine right now, because none of the neobanks are live, right? So I cannot really put it. But there are multiple interesting companies coming up, and I don't want to take the names because I don't want to market them. I will market Finin, Finin.in. You can register to our waitlist. so I don't want to market for anyone. But there are some interesting startups coming up, and we are very eager to be heads on heads with them and see what we can build and what we can. It's always about building the better features of products, better products for the users. So if there is some competition, there will be better products. So it's good for the users and good for everyone. So there are multiple products coming up who I can't name, but I don't see them as a competition, but I see that as a motivation for us to build better products than them. I know it sounds so cliche, but yeah, dude, I think in that way.
So that makes sense to me. Yeah, thanks.
Chandra?
Try to connect. Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, I'm a master's student. I'm studying design and I'm working on essentially looking at the potential for new digital financial products for underbanked audiences. And currently I'm focusing on gig workers. In my research, I found there's a lot of financial illiteracy and financial inclusion problems that can be solved, especially for bottom of the pyramid users. And I wondered what is the potential for a neobank here. A lot of the users I spoke to didn't have a way to track their spending, to plan for the future, and a lot of the features that you talk about earlier in this talk would be very helpful. So my question is, how helpful would a neobank type model be for these kind of users?
Okay, I see. I don't know, because I want to put it this way, Chandrasekhar. People don't come with brick bats towards me, right? The neobanks can do two things. They can either build for Bharat or either build for India. I think most of these people know the difference here, right? So what you are asking is a building for the Bharat. There is a huge potential for a neobank for building for the Bharat. Whether it can be financial literacy, financial inclusion, there's a lot of things. Other day I was talking to someone who are building something for people who take micro loans for the day. They take 100 rupees or they take 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. Okay, they take 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees in the morning, and they pay back on in the evening with 1,100 or 2,100. So it's like 100 rupees of interest per day, right? So there are a lot of things which can be solved as a neobank, where they can helping them to understand managing their money properly, but the helping them to really save money properly, right? Most of these people, the lower pyramid of the people, saving 100 or 200 is a big thing, and most of the people, they are not able to save. If somebody can really build something on solving that, it can be a very very interesting concept, and there are multiple companies who are building. And I cannot Finin is not really looking into that segment right now, but we do have plans down the lane, because as a startup, as a small team, and we really have to keep our focus concentrated on certain niche segments, and we are not focusing on the bottom of the pyramid, but that is a segment which there is a huge value, and there are multiple players coming up. I will say here, I can tell you the names of the startups, because I don't consider them as a competitor. Alo Bank, they are doing a lot for the bottom pyramid. They're building for them. There are another few neobanks coming up for this bottom pyramid, and they're doing great work. And I will share some links down later. Hit me up on the DM or on LinkedIn, and I can share some links. And I did some research here, and I will be more than happy to help you, giving you any other information.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Satish Kumar? So Satish is asking how neobank manages.
Hi, Suman. Sorry, maybe I'm asking very basic question, but the thing is, you are saying neobank and you are taking deposit from the customers, or there will be some customers' money involved in that. So in that case, see, every bank is having their own risk management, whereas they used to give half of the money for lending, have to maintain some sufficient balance to take out the demand. So at the same time, you are also speaking about the investment. So investment is always a risky term. And you are mentioning about mutual funds, and you are saying about liquid funds. So can you give a little bit clarity on like how you are
Sure.
going to manage that? At the same time, the next question is like what will be the transaction charges? Because like if you go for mutual funds, the charges used to be very high. So that's what I want to ask the question from you.
Perfect.
Over to you.
Okay. Yes, Satish, I totally understand where the question coming from about the risk, right? So we are partnering with an existing bank, right? So we are piggybacking on the license of an existing bank, right? And whatever we take as a deposit, we do not take the deposit, right? The deposit, the money is going to an RBI regulated bank entity. So the same way you're putting your money in another bank, whatever the risk the banks are taking to take your money, whatever the risk or the guarantee the RBI covers your money, the same thing will be covered through a neobank because the deposit is going to a regulated bank entity. So that is the reason your money is safe. Okay, if you tell me, if you ask me the present situation of multiple banks, I will still say there is none of the bank in India ever bankrupt, right? So the risk is the same, similar to any other bank. The money is regulated by an RBI. The money is handled by a RBI regulated entity, which is a bank. So the risk is same as like you putting money into any other bank, right? So we are kind of I don't know, it's a very crude way to put it, but we are kind of a white label banking partner for existing banks. I don't want to put it that way, but yes. But where we will do better job than the existing bank. Right, and coming to the next question of what are the transaction charges, right? The transaction charges depends on the mode of transaction, right? If you're saying mutual funds, yeah, please hit me up on LinkedIn or a DM. I'll share my social media and I'll explain you on that because I can't give you the whole list of transaction charges because there is multiple transaction charges for the mutual funds or liquid funds or investments or inward remittance. There are multiple transactions, but I'll tell you one thing: we will be better than anyone in the market. You will be more than happy to use those charges because we are cutting the middleman, we are cutting the customer acquisition cost when comparing to what the bank spend. So we will be much better and much cheaper and a value for your buck when coming to the transaction charges, where you will be more than happy to use those services.
Yeah, sure, Suman. Understood that. Just another one small question, like, is it only to personal or you are offering neobank to firms like partnership firm or private limited as well?
We don't want to get into current accounts right now for the small and medium enterprises or SMEs or MSMEs because there are people doing like Bank Open who is doing a great job. So our focus is right now to improve the lives of end users, customers, not the companies.
Okay, thanks. Like anything, like we'll take
Thank
off.
you.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you.
Vijay, Anthony.
Hi, Suman. So I want to know when you talk about aggregation, aggregating the transactions. So I'm currently using something called Perfios, which helps me to aggregate not just the bank transaction. It's about mutual funds, stocks, everything, the insurances and everything. So are you talking about something similar in the Finian? The other question would be, you also talk about the liquid fund. So when there is a loan, upcoming loan in 10 days, then you talked about keeping the money in a liquid fund. So one thing is the taxes which accompanies with that. The other thing is that, is this some kind of robo advisory you're doing? We keep the money in the savings account and you automatically deducting it, putting it into a liquid fund, or just suggesting the liquid funds and the person who's owning the account taking the action to do that?
Vijay, thanks a lot for this question. All right, and don't hate me for this, but I'll tell you that we do better job than Perfios. We do better job than anyone in the market right now. All right, it's not just about account aggregation, right? So we do when I talk about account aggregation, it's not just about aggregating your account and giving you a financial view, right? We just clearly tell you where exactly you are, because if you account aggregate with the Perfios, they give you multiple analytics like how much your loans are and everything. But what we do is that how we also help you how to clear that loan, what you have to follow to clear the loan, What are the nudges you need to, and you need to save more for that the Europe trip you're planning to, right? So by account aggregation, we give you much more information. I will tell you one simple example, right? In the month of February, I lost around 13,432 rupees because I forgot to unsubscribe to two things. One is Microsoft Office and one is Netflix. I registered for a free trial, okay, and I forgot to unsubscribe for the end of the month, and I got charged for both of the services, and I lost 13,000 in the month of Feb, right? And none of the banks or none of the fintechs, they really notify me that you subscribe for something, or you subscribe for something, and do you want to unsubscribe for this or this for the next month? But what we do is that we understand your subscriptions, we understand your bills, we understand your payments, we understand your loans, we understand your EMIs. So we aggregate all that, and we give you a clear view of who is going to charge you, when, how much. The Netflix account which we have not used for the last 6 months, do you still want that? So we do multiple, we do a lot of data analytics on top of the account aggregation, and we give you a lot of information that what the existing players are doing. Okay, and coming to other questions of mutual funds and liquid funds and everything, right? We are kind of I don't call ourselves a robo-advisory, and also we cannot move your money, right? Without your permission, we cannot take your money and we put it in a liquid fund. We cannot do that because the money belongs to you, the data belongs to you. So what we do is that we ourselves call a robo-advisor plus, where we suggest you what is right for you, and we help you to streamline and make the process easier. So and help you to do that. So we call ourselves kind of a robo advisor plus. Other than that, so this is what I will say for both of your questions.
Thank you sir.
Basil Roy.
Diwakar, I think you can skip the question. It's already been answered previously.
Okay, cool. Shruti.
Suman.
Hey, Shruti.
So I have a very basic question. For a layman, someone who doesn't have a commerce background, can't do P&L for saving my life. There are a lot of buzzwords when it comes to neobanking, because I want to be ahead in my field of PMing, invoice financing, neobanking, this credit, that credit. So how does one go about understanding all of these without getting confused, without it seeming like a black hole for banking in terms? And since people don't actually come from banking background too much, but since this is already there, they want to learn about it.
Perfect. Shruti, I will tell you one thing. This is not a layman question, and you're not a layman, because we are a whole team. We are a whole team where nobody thought about financial buzzwords for us, financial things for us, right? So I consider you and me on the same boat. The only thing is that I'm building something for the people, and you as you or they're looking at it, but we are on the same boat. So when coming to your question, right? There's a lot of buzzwords going on, invoicing, financing, and mutual funds, liquid funds. These are mostly buzzwords for most of the people, right? There are many buzzwords. Mm-hmm. The thing is that it's, when coming to non-banking PMs, right? It's about it's not about learning the buzzwords. It's about finding a problem, right? Identifying a problem, or solving this problem for the user, right? It's very simple. You don't really have to know the buzzwords. What is the invoice financing? It's not just about a digital payment is nothing but opening the QR app and paying for it. Right? It's simple. So what is the problem? The problem is paying a merchant or paying a shop using your mobile. That is what digital payments is. But if you put the word digital payments, it sounds like a complicated thing. But if you think as like I want to pay using scanning a QR, then it's a layman sentence where digital payment is for someone else. So it's all about identifying the problems and building a solution. And most of the PMs or most of the product owners or product managers, they already are good at solving the problems. So I don't think the financial buzzword will be a problem for most of the users when they understand the problem. It's about understanding the problem and finding the solution and streamlining the process and pushing and building something. And most of the PMs who are in this group are really good at that. So I don't think that will be an issue.
Thank you so much.
Shruti, thank you.
Arpan?
Yeah, hi Suman. It was a great session. Am I audible?
Hey, Arpan, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a basic question, like how neobank makes enough money because you operate with like other banking partner, right? So they take a major chunk of the profits, or is it there are like other kind of innovative ways to like make money for neobanks? I know it's a layman. I searched for Google, but I just found it there.
No. Nothing question is layman, man. We all, we learn in the process. So it's nothing layman. And it's a very interesting question because I answer that to my investors every day. What is your revenue model? What is your revenue model? And I'm like, dude, first let me build a product, right? And but the investor doesn't listen to it. So like I said, right, we are not an e-commerce company where we develop we ship the product to your door and my relationship with you finish, right? So my relationship with the customer starts when they open an account, right? So because the financial journey of a user or the customer starts when they open a bank account. So that's what the neobank is doing, helping them to open an account. And then what we do is that we understand the user. So there are multiple revenue models. Whether we can make money on mutual funds or investment or wealth management. We can make money on lending. We can make money on savings. There are multiple revenue models which we can focus, right? But again, the revenue model will come on the segments where we get the traction, where we can acquire the customer with lowest customer acquisition cost, with high lifetime value. And based on that, we will streamline our revenue models for that customer segment, what we are focusing and what we are acquiring, then start thinking about how I can make money from a user who is not there, right? But we do have multiple revenue models focused and streamlined for every segment. So we just have to see where we get the traction and where we get the user, and then we focus. So like I said before, right? Freelancer, inward remittance, there is one of the revenue model over there. And there is a revenue in lending. I'm totally against lending money, but borrowing money. But I will tell you, if the lending is a responsible lending, if the borrowing is a responsible borrowing, then I think there is a huge money to make without making the users suffer under the credit crunch. So there are multiple revenue models open, and I'll be more than happy to discuss this offline.
Yeah, can I add something to that? Because you just discussed about freelancing, right? So what do you think Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as a like competitor? Because just currently Indian government just regulate that you can use Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. It just came up to my mind.
No, I totally understand. But the thing is that it's not about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, right? If you look at Ripple, Ripple started a long way planning on to integrating with the existing banking process, which never happened. Okay, the same thing, right? At the end of the day, the Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency should be converted into fiat currency so the end user can use it, right? So let's see when the white elephants, which are banks, can really introduce Bitcoin or cryptocurrency into them and converting that into fiat cash, and where every person, every layman can convert the Bitcoin or crypto into cash without creating accounts anywhere and use that money. So until then, I don't see cryptocurrency or Bitcoin will be helping freelancers or anyone unless you want to buy and sell on Bitcoin. You provide a service, get a Bitcoin, and if you want to buy something, you pay with the Bitcoin. So I'm talking this with my experience because I started with crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain in 2011 when nobody heard about it. So I know the whole segments of this, and I can go on, and Diwakar will kill me for that.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for answering my question.
Okay, so we have one last question from Vijay. Vijay wants to know when would Finin launch in market, and he says that he guesses everybody wants to know that.
Guys, we were supposed to launch last month, but the present situation we are unable to launch. But we are pushing to launch by end of this month or first week of July. We will be doing a beta. So please, guys, get on finin.in. That is FININ.in, and register for the waitlist, and we will send you invites as soon as we launch. And please support it, and any feedback, any feature requests, we have our community over there. Please post it. Please reach out to me directly. And another selfless plug, we are hiring. We are hiring multiple roles. I know that is kind of a music for during this COVID or in Corona. But yes, we are hiring for multiple roles, whether it can be coming to PM or backend developers or mobile developers, marketing especially. So please DM, reach me out. We are hiring, and be a part of something where we are building something great, man. I'm very proud of what I'm building, and what we can do to help users to be more financially independent and economically stable. So please, if you want to be part of our journey, please reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Suman, and from everybody who has attended this session and people from the community. We wish you all the best. We wish Finin all the best. We are all very curious to see how the whole neobank wave goes in India, and I think you will find a lot of early adopters from this group. So everyone, can we have a quick round of applause for Suman for giving his time and telling us great stories.
Divakar, thanks for hosting me, and guys, you guys are so nice and so patient listening to me, and thanks a lot for it.
Yep. Have a nice Sunday, everyone. Bye bye. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.